Hey guys, this is James with thegraymattersblog.com, coming to you from another one of my walks in the South Texas woods. It's actually a lovely 70 degrees out today, so if any of you guys are having any actual winter weather you want to send us, that'd be awesome. So I'm going to do something a little bit different today. Instead of a poem, I have a little bit of a thing I'm planning on doing where we're going to do kind of a writing 101. Because I belong to a lot of these writing groups where new writers go to kind of go, okay, where do I start? And they always have so many questions, and I feel like when you start writing, there's always this big confusion. Okay, how do I start? How do I become a writer? And in reality, while it requires a lot of work, it's really not that complicated. And mostly it involves getting started and doing it and putting it into practice. But there are a lot of little helpful tips that I figured out along the way. So I figure I'll kind of do this writing 101 thing for new people, for people who've been writing but maybe aren't really sure where to go from here. And if you're kind of thinking about writing, or you've tried writing in the past and it didn't work out for you, maybe some of this stuff will be helpful. So I'm going to jump right into our questions that we've kind of put together, kind of these frequently asked questions from new writers. One is, where do I get inspiration? On so many of these forums, on so many of these writing groups, on Facebook and other places, you keep running into people saying, okay, help me come up with an idea. I don't have an idea for a novel, or I don't have an idea for a book. And my biggest advice on this is consume stories. This means read books, read comic books, watch movies, watch television series, talk to people who've had interesting life experiences. Just consume these stories. And as you keep consuming them, reading them, watching them, all this different kinds of stuff, you're going to have your mind start dissecting them and taking them apart, putting them back together, and coming up with these new interesting ideas. I actually have something I call the box. It's kind of a mental idea, but it's also literally a Word document where it's all the ideas I have. They're put in the box. Sometimes they're a whole scene, sometimes they're a story idea, sometimes they're just a cool phrase or conversation I want to see happen. And they all get put in the box, they bounce around together, and sometimes they form whole stories. You know, you may have an idea for a conversation you want to have in a bar, or you may have an idea for, hey, this new take on a new type of vampire, and then this another idea for a protagonist that you want to see with this really interesting, cool kind of memory loss you read about. And you put those on the box and they may come out all together and be an entire story idea. And like I said, just the biggest thing is consume stories. The more stories you consume, keep track of these different ideas, the more ideas you'll have, and pretty soon you won't have any trouble coming up with inspiration. The next one is, of course, once you have the idea, where do you start? You know, just, okay, hey, I've got this cool idea. What do I start doing? And the answer is start smaller than you think. Everyone wants to start with a novel. Novels are cool. Novels are sexy. Novels make money. At least they can. And everyone wants to start with a novel, but novels are so big and they take so much time to do. The problem is, as a writer, especially a new writer, you need practice. Lots and lots and lots of practice. The first thing you write will be terrible. That's okay. It's supposed to be terrible. That's its job to be terrible. But it's the first thing, then you need to move to the second thing. The thing is, you have to go through the entire process. You don't just practice putting words on page. You want to practice putting words on page, then editing those words, then rewriting those words, then giving them to your beta readers, to friends, to critique partners, and having them read them, then give you feedback, then applying that feedback, then editing again, then rewriting again. And with a novel, that whole process takes years, or at least a year or more. It takes a long time, and that's if you're really fast. Whereas if you do it with short stories, which are like, you know, can be 10,000 words-ish, give or take. Microfictions are even shorter, 500 words, 1,000 words. And you can crank those out really fast and then edit them pretty fast. Then give them to someone, let them read them, get feedback, then fix them, then do some more stuff. And pretty soon you have these really highly polished little things that you're getting good at polishing them. Now, yes, novels are different. Pacing on novels is different, all that kind of stuff. But the skills you learn doing short stories, doing microfictions, will make you a better novelist. So even if a novel, that memoir you want to write, whatever, even if that's really where you want to end up, try starting small. It really helps. Then the next question is, how much do you outline? Every new writer thinks they're a pantser. Not necessarily. And of course, pantser is someone who writes by the seat of their pants, doesn't outline very much. A plotter is someone who makes these detailed outlines. George Martin calls them gardeners and architects, whereas they build versus letting it grow. And it just has to do with how much you outline your story. And a lot of new writers have this idea of, oh, I'm going to be a pantser. Stephen King's a great famous pantser, and he is. And they start doing this stuff, and they think that that's going to work for them, but then they end up getting writer's block, never finishing stuff. And not to say it happens all the time, and if it works for you, if you're a pantser, you don't plan, and you just sit down and you write, and that works, wonderful. Keep doing that. That's great. But so many people think that's the way to do it, and then don't realize that they're having that's why they're having issues. So my advice would be, if you're having trouble finishing things, if you're encountering writer's block, try planning more than you think. Not saying you have to do a strict chapter by chapter outline, but, do a basic plot outline. Remember, outlines can change. Whether it's just, making character notes about people's characters, people's relationships. Try editing, or excuse me, can't talk today. Try doing a little more than you think you need to. Try outlining a little more than you think you need to. And I think that will usually help people. I know it happened with me. I know it happened with Sharon, who has written actually a couple of full-length novels that are getting really close to actually, putting out in front of people. And in all those cases, we ended up plotting more than we thought we needed to. And of course, this is another one. This is one of my favorite ones. It's come up really recently, and it comes in every permutation, and I'm going to answer every permutation of this question all at once. Do you think anyone would be interested in reading a story about blank? And it's really funny. It can sometimes be, do you think anyone would be interested in reading a story about a female protagonist, a gay protagonist, a sci-fi Western horror, any of these crazy mashups of genres, a cozy space mystery horror? I mean, whatever it is, they always have these ideas. Would anyone be interested in that? I'm going to go ahead and answer your question. Yes, they would be interested in it, because 5 guys have already written a book just like that, and it sells really well. So your idea is not original. I'm sorry to break that to you. Whatever idea you thought that was, someone else has already done it, but it's okay because it means people like it. And yes, the downside is that means someone beats you to the market. The upside is it means there is a market. There is an audience for that. So no matter what idea you have, there's something out there like it, but it's probably selling okay. So like I said, if you're not the first one to write about a female protagonist or a gay protagonist or a protagonist of color or anything like that, I mean, you name it, there's someone else out there doing it. You're not the first one to write a space opera about dwarves or whatever. I guarantee any idea you have, there's a market for that, and that's a good thing. And finally, here's one of my favorite things. I have some awesome bulletproof writing advice for you guys, because the question is always, how do I learn to do X as a writer? And it could be, how do I learn to write action scenes? How do I learn to write love scenes? How do I learn to write dialogue better? How do I just learn to do any of these things? How do I learn show, not tell? How do I learn all these writing skills that are super important skills? And the answer to that is, I've got a foolproof method. And I'm sure someone else out there has already come up with this. I'm sure I'm regurgitating this from somewhere, but at least as far as I can think of, I've never heard anyone else with this advice. So I'm sure I reinvented the wheel, but this is really great advice. Whatever you want to learn to do, pick someone in your genre. If you write fantasy, pick a fantasy author. If you write, paranormal romance, pick a good paranormal romance author. But pick someone that you like their stuff and they do a good job of what you're looking at. Either if you're trying to learn how to write better dialogue and use better dialogue tags, then find an author who does that really well. Take their book, buy a book from them, and maybe a book from someone else who does it too. Get 2 or 3 from different authors who are all in that genre that you really like, and get you a highlighter. And then find every instance where they did the thing, where every action scene they had, or every love scene they had, or every dialogue choice. And you just start highlighting how they did it. Then make notes. Okay, you're doing dialogue. Okay, here they used a classic he said. Here they said, he pontificated. Here they didn't use any dialogue tag at all and just let the action let you know who was speaking. And just start highlighting and making notes of how they did it. So what you're doing is you're basically giving yourself a master class in how to write a novel from people who are writing excellent novels, because you're the one picking the novel. You're the one deciding this is an excellent novel. And you can do that with anything. And there's virtually nothing in writing a book that you can't learn that way. If you're worried about show, don't tell, which, by the way, is the most confusing writing advice ever, it is important and it is correct. It is much better to show versus tell, but that is the most abused writing advice ever. It so confuses most people, but even that, you can take your highlighter and see where these people who are good writers have done that and teach yourself to do it that way. That's my big, $1 million idea that's, again, I'm sure has been come up with before, but that's my big idea on how you do it. It's worked really good for me, and I guarantee it works for almost everybody. And it's just this real great little cheat that you can teach yourself to do almost anything writing-wise by. So anyway, guys, that's been my kind of writing 101. I do have a bunch of other frequently asked questions because, like I said, the internet is full of these things because new writers are just hungry for advice. So I have a few more. I'm going to do a couple more videos like this. I've got a few more ideas of things I want to talk about. I want to hear what you guys want to hear as far as frequently asked questions, as new writers, as established writers, just as anyone kind of interested in maybe starting writing. What questions do you have? So let me know in the comments. Let me know on Facebook. Make sure to give us a like and a subscribe. We're almost to 25, guys. We're getting really close. At 25, we will have a big writing contest. The winner will get featured on our blog. I really want to do this, guys, so get us some more subscribers. I'm really excited about this, and I'll see you guys on my next walk.